Good morning and welcome to another episode of Old School RC. Today is featuring an Enya 46 4-cycle. But before I get into showing you this engine, one of the reasons why I'm calling this Old School RC is because it's featuring, maybe I should just call it Lazy School RC. It's featuring a camera setup that I kind of sort of used to use many years ago. And I'll show you here how I've got it set up. So I have a 2-camera setup usually when I'm doing these videos. And the one I'm showing you right now is normally standing upright and facing my face, and that's doing the headshot. And then the Canon M50 is normally standing overhead as it's oriented in this image at a 90-degree angle, and that's shooting my completely straight downward shots. Well, today I've just got my headshot camera leaning forward onto the table at a slight angle so I can get a little bit different shot, because my first videos way back, and this kind of goes back to those of you that have watched my channel from the very beginning over 10 years ago. My very first videos of disassembly of engines were shot using a laptop and a webcam, and I had to sit there and position that laptop in such a way that the webcam would do that. But another reason this is called Old School RC is because this is the precursor to something that a series, probably my very first video series that I titled Video Series, which is called the Box to the Bench Run. Now, Box to the Bench runs were basically exactly what they said. I would buy an engine from eBay. I would do a preliminary check of the engine just to make sure that I felt it was in a good enough condition to do a run without any further intervention on my part. And then I would take it out and I would run it as a box to the bench run, and then I would bring it in and do whatever things else that I deemed necessary to replace bearings, etc. So this Enya 46 4-cycle engine, I've had this for months, and honestly it was late last year when I bought this, and I don't even remember the circumstances of it, but this was a much grungier looking engine, and I just spent about 10 minutes before shooting this video doing what one of my ex-wives would call a whore bath on it, which in this sense, and that's not to say that my ex-wife was a whore at all, that's just what she would say when she would just do a quick wash up of her parts with a rag and soap. So that's kind of what I did. I used a toothbrush, some LA's Totally Awesome cleaner straight, and then a little bit of some other aluminum cleaner, and I just dabbed the toothbrush in the LA's Totally Awesome cleaner, and I was just scrubbing. Now this had, you may say, well, God, that engine looks beautiful, looks perfect. It looks much better than it did. This had what you would consider the typical grunge from a used engine that you would get on eBay. It had light stuff on there. It didn't have any major, exhaust or carbon residue on it, but it just had some grit and dirt in the crevices and cracks. So all I did was basically what I just said. In fact, it looks like, looking at the front of it here on the camera, it looks like I could have done it a little bit better. But anyway, so this is going to be the subject of basically what I would call a box to the bench run, because it passes all my criteria. The throttle moves the way it's supposed to. The choke mechanism feels like it's probably not working exactly as it should. So on these Enya 46 4-cycle engines, that's how you choke the engine. Is you would pull this out, the throttle arm out, and it should go and like cover about 50% of that opening, which it doesn't look like it's pulling out completely. So that's not a big deal. I'll just use my finger to choke it. But I mean, the throttle moves freely. It turns over, and it's got really good compression. So the only other thing I want to do is I want to take this rocker cover off and just kind of take a quick look. And this is what I would do with 4-cycle engines on my box to the bench run. I would just take the rocker cover off, take a quick look inside there, and oil if necessary. And of course, I'm sitting here doing this knowing I was going to do this, and I didn't grab the oil because I'm pretty sure this is probably going to be dry. And there you have it. So it looks pretty dry. I'm going to set this piston at top dead center. So intake valve goes down, then we get that compression stroke, and then I just kind of feel it at top dead center. And what I do to just do a quickie valve last check is, if I can feel it move at all, if the engine has good compression, and I can just slightly feel these arms pulling off the valve, then I'm calling that a good. I mean, it's just slight. Now, if it was, big time movement, then obviously I would reset the lash. But this feels like it's going to be about good. So let me grab a little bit of ballistol oil here real quick and just kind of lubricate. I put a nice little squirt on the springs and this screw, this moving parts here. Maybe shoot a little bit down in that. So these Enya engines, when you get them used, they're very typically, you'll have cam followers stuck. And the cam followers are down in this area. So it was why I was kind of shocked that I got an Enya 4-stroke that is box to the bench worthy. It's got really nice compression. So the other reason I'm doing this is because I just placed and actually received, unfortunately, not unfortunately, I just placed and received an order from Boca bearings. So what I did was I ordered sets for a bunch of, I don't want to tighten that down yet. I ordered sets for engines of my own that I'm going to be doing bearing installation videos on. So I've got like a handful of engines that I want to replace the bearings on and shoot videos for Boca on. So the thing with these Enya 46 4-cycle engines is there were two variants. And the best I can find is that they call them an early and a later. An earlier variant and a later. I think maybe the later one was actually called the 2, Enya 46 4-cycle 2. I don't know if they used the term mark. But I don't remember, and there was a way to tell. And the way to tell was where the positioning of the crankcase vent was. So it was either here or it was here. And I don't for the life of me remember which one was which, if this means this is an early version or a later version. And the reason that's important is because both versions use different size bearings. Completely different size bearings, both front and rear. Not these bearings here were always the same back in there. 4-bearing engine, there's 2 here, one on this timing shaft and then one in the rear cover. One here on the end of the crank shaft and one at the front. So there were 2 variants and they both had different size bearings for the front housing. So, and Boca's website does have a listing for 2 different part numbers, 2 different size bearings. One was a standard, pretty standard, and then one was a metric. So I don't know which one this was, and I was hoping to wait to place that order until I had this all disassembled, but it's like time started getting away and I just wanted to start running engines, so I didn't want to have 5 or 6 engines all disassembled at the same time making measurements. So what I did was I just placed an order, but it turns out that one of the sets of the part numbers for this set is the exact same bearings, and many engines may share the same size bearings in the front or the crankshaft. It was the same size as for the Sato 91S, OS 46 and 40 FX, OS 90 FX, if you can believe that. So there was a whole bunch of engines at this one part number of bearings. So I ordered 2 sets of that bearing, no, 4 sets of that size bearing. One was stainless steel, 2 were stainless steel, and then 2 were high performance bearings. And then I ordered the other metric one in the event that this was the metric one. So that then I'd have 4 sets of bearings to replace on some engines that I've got. And then maybe another set for this, which would be cool. And then I also got a set for my FT240 Super Gemini, because I'll be disassembling that too. So anyway, I know I'm rambling on here, but that's kind of how it goes sometimes. But this is going to be a nice engine to run, and it's been a long time. I can't even remember the last time I ran an Enya 46 4-cycle engine. I'd have to go back and look and see. But so this is why I'm doing this, why I'm calling it an old school RC video, and you can see that I know I'm rambling here, but so using LA's Totally Awesome cleaner on an external clean like this is not something that's going to discolor the case. So I feel perfectly safe, and this was full strength. It wasn't cut. It was full strength LA's Totally Awesome cleaner. So what I did was I dipped my toothbrush in there, scrub, 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 wiped down with a paper towel, and then when I was done and I made sure that everything looked as clean as I thought it was going to get, then I held this over a little container and just poured isopropyl alcohol over it to get any of the remaining LA's Totally Awesome cleaner off of this engine. So that's how I do one of those baths, and that's how I still will continue and always will use LA's Totally Awesome cleaner in that external finish type situation, and just quick cleaning like that, but always wash it off with either water, or I use isopropyl alcohol, because if you can't get all the liquid out of there, the isopropyl will at least evaporate fairly quickly. So anyway, that's my video for this morning. I'm going to get this on the stand hopefully this week. I mean, and the other reason this is a lazy video with this camera here is because I've been running engines almost daily, at least every other day, and it was just getting to be a real pain in the butt to keep setting that Canon up and having all these different tripods in front of the table here. So maybe this will be a new way of me doing this. I can get in real nice and tight. This camera is really, this is a Canon also, but it's just a little handheld camera, but it does a really decent job. So I mean, maybe this will be my next kind of cheat way of doing it. But anyway, that's our video for today.